When it comes to building wealth, one of the greatest lessons I ever learned is that it's not just about working harder, it's about working smarter. You can only put in so many hours, only use so much energy, and only push yourself so far. But the secret is learning how to multiply your output, how to get more results without multiplying the effort. Wealthy people understand leverage, leverage of time, leverage of tools, leverage of focus. If you want to get ahead, you must learn how to do more with less. I remember early in my career, I was busy all the time, yet I wasn't moving forward. I'd fill the day with tasks, but at the end of the week, I wasn't any closer to financial freedom. Then I came across the principle that 20% of your efforts produce 80% of your results. That shifted everything for me. I began to ask myself daily, what are the few things that really matter? What are the actions that, if I do them consistently, will change the game? When I focused on those high-impact tasks, I realized I could produce twice as much in half the time. Wealth comes from effectiveness, not exhaustion. Another way to multiply output is by using tools and technology. In the old days, you had to track your spending with pen and paper, balance a checkbook by hand, and make phone calls one by one. Today, there are apps that can automate your savings, schedule your investments, and remind you of your commitments. When you let technology take care of the repetitive, low-value tasks, you free yourself up to focus on creating value, building relationships, and making decisions that actually move you forward. I often tell people, don't resist tools that can save you time. Embrace them. They are not a replacement for discipline. They are an extension of it. There's also a powerful practice called batching. Instead of letting the day get chopped up into little fragments, answering emails every few minutes, switching from one small task to another, you group similar tasks together. Spend one focused hour answering all your messages instead of scattering them across the day. Set aside a block of time for planning your finances once a week rather than worrying about it in pieces every evening. When you batch your work, you conserve energy, avoid decision fatigue, and give yourself the gift of focus. I discovered that batching doubled my efficiency because my mind could stay in one gear long enough to produce results. The truth is, multiplying your output isn't about adding more hours to the day. It's about managing the hours you already have so they work for you, not against you. When you focus on what truly matters, use tools that extend your reach, and batch your tasks to maintain energy and clarity, you'll find that wealth building becomes not just possible, but inevitable. That's how you do more with less. One of the biggest mistakes people make when it comes to success is believing that goals alone will carry them through. Don't get me wrong, goals are important. They give you direction, something to aim for. But goals without systems are like wishes without a plan. You can set a goal to make $100,000, but unless you build a system that produces that result, you'll be depending on motivation, and motivation comes and goes. Systems are what carry you through when motivation fades. When I first started setting big goals for myself, I noticed I would get excited in the beginning. I'd write them down, dream about them, and even talk about them to others. But after a few weeks, the excitement would wear off, and life would pull me back into old habits. That's when I learned a valuable truth. Systems outlast motivation. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. If your system is strong, the results will follow, whether you feel motivated or not. This is why automation is so powerful. Automation takes willpower out of the equation. If you have to decide every month whether or not to save, chances are you'll talk yourself out of it when things get tight. But if you set up an automatic transfer, the moment money hits your account, savings happens without emotion, without debate. The wealthy automate as much as they can. Savings, investments, even their learning schedules. I knew a man who scheduled a daily reading reminder on his calendar. He didn't have to think about when to study. The system told him. That one habit alone transformed his earning ability because he learned new ideas consistently, not just when he felt like it. Now, here's something else I had to learn. Consistency is far more powerful than intensity. Too many people try to build wealth in bursts. They'll get excited, work like crazy for a week, and then burn out. But wealth isn't built in spurts. It's built in steady, daily execution. It's like planting seeds. You don't throw a bag of seeds on the ground once and expect a harvest. You plant a little every day, water consistently, and let time do its work. That's how systems work. They're not flashy, they're not dramatic, but they're dependable. So, if you want real success, stop relying only on big goals that inspire for a moment and start building systems that carry you for a lifetime. Create routines, automate the things that matter, and commit to showing up daily with consistency. Because in the end, wealth doesn't respond to occasional excitement. It responds to steady, reliable discipline carried out through systems. One of the turning points in my own journey was when I realized that wealth isn't just about what you do, it's about what you believe and the rules you decide to live by. Most people drift financially because they're following someone else's philosophy, usually the one they grew up with. If your parents believed money was scarce, chances are you picked up those same beliefs. If your peers think money is for spending as soon as it arrives, you'll likely fall into the same trap. The truth is, unless you create your own wealth philosophy, you'll unconsciously live by someone else's. That's why I encourage people to sit down and write their wealth manifesto. Put your rules in black and white. Decide how you're going to earn money ethically by creating value, by solving problems. Decide how you're going to spend money carefully, with discipline, never to impress, always to advance your life or enrich your experiences. Decide how you'll invest consistently, patiently, with a long-term view. And don't forget to decide how you'll give, because part of wealth is contribution, and generosity is what keeps abundance flowing back into your life. When you put all that down in writing, you're not just wishing anymore, you're setting a standard you can measure yourself against. But don't stop at writing it once and tucking it away in a drawer. A wealth philosophy is like a compass. It only helps if you keep checking it. That's why I review mine weekly. I ask myself, did I live by my rules this week? Did I drift? Did I let emotions or circumstances push me off course? That weekly review keeps me accountable. It keeps me from just chasing shiny objects or making decisions based on feelings. It reminds me that discipline, not impulse, is the foundation of wealth. And here's something even more powerful. Teach your philosophy to others. Share it with your children, your spouse, your friends, your mentees. Teaching is one of the best ways to deepen your own understanding. When you explain why you save before you spend, or why you avoid debt, or why you invest consistently, you're not just instructing them, you're reinforcing the principle in your own mind. And long after you're gone, those you've taught will carry forward the legacy of your philosophy. Wealth is never accidental. It's built on purpose, with rules you create and live by. Write them, review them, and teach them. Because when your money philosophy is clear, your actions follow naturally, and your wealth will have both meaning and direction. When people ask me what separates those who succeed from those who don't, I often say it's not intelligence, and it's not even opportunity, it's resilience. The road to wealth is filled with twists and turns, and if you expect it to be smooth, you're setting yourself up for disappointment. Setbacks are not the exception. They are part of the process. I learned early on that the harvest doesn't always come when you want it. Businesses don't always go the way you planned, and investments sometimes lose value. But here's the truth. Those moments don't define your future unless you let them. They are lessons, not life sentences. Expect them, prepare for them, and use them as stepping stones rather than stumbling blocks. That's why it's so important to have a recovery plan. When things go wrong, and they will, you need a process. My own process has always been simple. Pause, reflect, adjust, restart. Pause to let the emotions settle. Reflect on what went wrong and, more importantly, what part I played in it. Adjust the plan so I don't repeat the same mistake. Then restart, even if the steps are small. I remember once losing a significant business opportunity that I had invested months of effort into. For a while, I was frustrated and even tempted to blame circumstances. But after giving myself space to reflect, I realized the loss was a result of my poor preparation. That reflection gave me the adjustment I needed, and the restart put me back on track stronger than before. Without that process, I might have quit too early. The other piece of resilience is emotional detachment. Wealth is destroyed every day by people who panic when they should be patient, or who get overly excited and careless when things are going well. If you want to build wealth, you have to train yourself to respond with logic, not panic. I've seen people sell investments at the bottom out of fear, only to watch the market rebound. I've seen others spend money recklessly in good times, only to regret it when things turned. Emotional control doesn't mean you don't feel disappointment or excitement. It means you don't let those feelings dictate your decisions. Resilience is a discipline. It's expecting setbacks. Instead of being surprised by them, it's having a plan to recover rather than falling apart, and it's keeping your emotions in check when the pressure mounts. Build that kind of toughness, and wealth will not just be something you chase, it will be something you can sustain, no matter what life throws at you. Life and wealth both move in seasons, and if you don't understand the timing of those seasons, you'll always be out of rhythm. There's a season for planting, a season for nurturing, and a season for harvesting. The mistake many people make is trying to harvest in the planting season, or they get impatient during the nurturing season and give up before the harvest arrives. Timing matters just as much as effort, and once you learn to work with the seasons instead of against them, everything begins to change. The planting season is where it all begins. This is when you put ideas into the ground, your learning, your experiments, your connections. It's a season of investment, not return. I remember when I was young and just starting out, most of what I did seemed to go unnoticed. I was reading every book I could, listening to every mentor I could find, and trying new ventures that often didn't work out. It didn't look like success, but I was planting seeds. That's the time to be bold, to try things, to network with people who may become lifelong allies. Don't worry about the harvest in this season. Just plant as many seeds as you can. Then comes the nurturing season. This is the hardest season for most people because the growth isn't visible. You water the soil, you pull the weeds, but nothing seems to change day after day. This is where patience is tested. I can tell you from experience, wealth doesn't appear overnight. I had ventures where, for months, I saw no results at all. And I had to remind myself that the roots were growing beneath the surface. This is the time to keep showing up, to stay consistent, to trust that what you're doing will pay off. Many people abandon their garden during this season, not realizing they were weeks or months away from breakthrough. And then, if you've planted well and nurtured faithfully, the harvest season arrives. This is the reward for all the patience, the discipline, and the faith. But here's the critical part. When the harvest comes, you must handle it wisely. Too many people consume their entire harvest and forget to keep some seeds aside. If you don't save and reinvest, you'll have nothing to plant for the next cycle. I've seen people who struck it rich for a season, only to be broke again because they thought the harvest would last forever. It won't. You must take part of what you've earned and put it back into planting for the future. Master the rhythm of these seasons. Plant generously, nurture patiently, and harvest wisely. and you'll never be surprised by the cycles of wealth again. If you really want to understand wealth, you have to learn how to earn while you sleep. Most people are trapped in the cycle of exchanging hours for dollars. They wake up, they work, they get paid, and then the next day it starts all over again. That's fine in the beginning. It teaches discipline and responsibility. But if you never make the shift from labor to leverage, you'll always be limited by the number of hours you can work. Wealth begins when you learn to build streams of income that keep flowing whether you're awake or asleep, working or resting. The first step is to create passive income streams. Think about investments that pay you consistently without demanding your daily labor. Dividends from stocks, rental properties that generate cash flow, royalties from creative work, or even digital products sold online. These are assets that keep working long after the initial effort is done. I remember when I bought my first piece of property that produced monthly rent. It wasn't much at the time, but the feeling of money showing up whether I was working or not changed everything for me. That was leverage. It proved that I didn't always have to trade sweat for dollars. Another powerful way is to productize your knowledge. You've spent years learning, making mistakes, and gaining experience. Why not package that knowledge into something others can use? Write an ebook, design a course, license an idea, or create a system that others can follow. Imagine making money from what you know instead of just what you do. Every time someone downloads your book or enrolls in your course, you're being paid for value you created once, but that continues to serve again and again. That's multiplying your effort without multiplying your hours. Of course, this doesn't happen by accident. It requires intention. You have to carve out time from your labor hours to build leverage assets. In the early days, I worked by day to pay the bills, but at night, I was learning, creating, and investing to build streams that would eventually pay me whether I worked or not. And I'll be honest, it took sacrifice. While others were relaxing, I was studying. While some spent everything they earned, I was putting money aside for assets. But that discipline built the foundation for freedom. Think about it like this. When your money works as hard as you do, you can afford to step back, rest, and even dream bigger. The goal isn't just to earn a living, but to build a fortune. And fortunes are built not on labor alone, but on leverage. Plant the seeds of passive income now, and one day you'll wake up to find your wealth working for you instead of the other way around. Most people live their entire lives measuring success by the size of their paycheck, but that's a shallow measure of wealth. A paycheck tells you how you're doing this week, but net worth tells you how you're doing in life. If you want to build real wealth, you have to shift your thinking from income to equity, from earnings to ownership, from short-term gains to long-term growth. The true scoreboard of financial progress is not how much you make, but how much you keep, grow, and control. One of the most practical steps you can take is to track your net worth monthly. Sit down and write out your assets, the things you own that put money in your pocket. Then list your liabilities, the things you owe that take money out of your pocket. Subtract liabilities from assets, and that's your net worth. This number may be small when you first begin, maybe even negative. That's fine. The important thing is not where it starts, but where it goes. When you measure it monthly, you'll start to see patterns. You'll notice whether you're moving in the right direction or slipping backward. And remember, what gets measured improves. But don't stop there. Make it your aim to build equity, not just income. A job can give you a paycheck, but ownership can give you wealth. Real estate, for instance, grows in value over time while also producing cash flow. Stocks represent ownership in businesses that compound year after year. And owning a business yourself, even a small one, gives you the chance to create value that multiplies far beyond an hourly wage. Income feeds you today, but equity feeds you for a lifetime. That's why the wealthy spend more time owning things that grow than chasing more hours to work. Now, here's a trap to avoid: lifestyle creep. As people make more money, they feel the urge to spend more. A bigger salary brings a bigger car, a bigger house, fancier clothes, and endless upgrades. But that cycle keeps them broke at a higher level. Instead, as your income grows, resist the temptation to expand your spending at the same pace. Keep your lifestyle modest and let the gap between your income and expenses build wealth. That margin is where investments are born. I remember when I started making more money than I ever thought possible, and I had a choice. I could let my expenses climb with my earnings, or I could hold steady and funnel the difference into assets. Choosing the latter gave me freedom. Freedom not just to buy things, but to buy back my time. So the real question isn't, how much did you make this month? The real question is, how much did you grow your net worth? Because in the end, that's the measure that matters. Confidence with money doesn't arrive fully formed. It's built one step at a time through small actions that stretch you beyond your comfort zone. Too many people wait until they feel perfectly ready to begin. But if you wait for readiness, you'll be waiting forever. The truth is, you grow confidence not by preparing endlessly, but by starting before you feel prepared. Every wealthy person I know began with small, uncertain steps, and over time, those steps created a foundation of financial confidence that no book alone could provide. The way to begin is simple. Take small financial risks. Put a modest amount into a new stock. Sign up for a course that sharpens your skills. Start a side project that has the potential to bring in income. It doesn't need to be large or overwhelming. In fact, it's better if it isn't. The purpose isn't to strike it rich in a single move. It's to train your mind to see yourself as someone who can take action with money. Each little risk builds a muscle, and like all muscles, it grows stronger with consistent use. Learning through experience will give you a kind of confidence that no theory can match. I love books, and I've spent countless hours studying them. But let me tell you, the lesson you get from putting $100 into the market, watching it fluctuate, feeling the emotion of gain and loss, and then deciding what to do next, that lesson is worth 10 times what a book can offer. Books give you knowledge, but experience gives you wisdom. The wealthy don't just read about investing or business, they step into it, learn from their missteps, and make adjustments along the way. That's how real confidence is formed. And here's something crucial. Track your wins, not just your losses. It's easy to dwell on mistakes, to replay the times you lost money or made a poor choice. But that mindset erodes confidence. Instead, keep a journal of the small successes. Write down when you made a wise purchase, saved an extra $100, or launched a new idea. Celebrate the progress, however small. Confidence is momentum, and momentum is built by stacking victories, even if they're tiny at first. Over time, those victories become proof that you can handle more. I remember when I made my first tiny investment. It wasn't life-changing in dollars, but it was life-changing in mindset. That little step told me, you can play this game. And once you see yourself as a participant instead of an observer, everything changes. So don't wait for the day you feel fully prepared. Begin now with what you have, where you are. Take a small step. Learn from the experience. Celebrate the win, and then take another step. Confidence is built in motion, not in waiting. Wealth isn't just about making the right moves. It's also about avoiding the wrong ones. And one of the most powerful principles you can learn is opportunity cost. Every choice you make carries a hidden cost, because saying yes to one thing always means saying no to something else. The wealthy understand this, and they guard their time, their money, and their energy with care. If you don't learn to say no, you'll never create the space to say yes to the things that actually build wealth. Think about time. It's the most precious resource you have, more valuable than money, because once it's gone, it never returns. Every hour spent scrolling aimlessly through a phone or caught up in gossip is an hour stolen from growth, learning, and wealth building. When I was young, I realized that if I gave too much time to low-value activities, I was trading my future for small, momentary comforts. So I started saying no, not out of discipline alone, but out of vision. I knew if I invested that time into reading a book, building a skill, or making a connection, it could multiply into something far greater. That trade-off has to be conscious, or else the hours slip away unnoticed. Now, let's look at the financial side. Before you spend, pause and ask yourself, what could this money become if I invested it instead? $100 spent today might buy a meal or a gadget, but if invested wisely, it could multiply into thousands over time. The wealthy know the power of delayed gratification. They're willing to skip the impulse of the moment because they see the picture 10 years down the road. I remember when I had to choose between buying something I wanted and putting that money into an investment. At first it felt like a sacrifice, but later when I saw that investment grow, I realized it wasn't a sacrifice, it was an exchange. I had traded something small and temporary for something large and lasting. And then there's energy. Your energy is just as valuable as your time and money. Complaining, worrying, or engaging in negativity drains the very fuel you need to move forward. Protect your energy fiercely. Use it for learning, for creating, for building relationships that elevate you. One conversation with the right person can change your direction more than 100 wasted hours of idle chatter. So here's the key. Every yes must be weighed carefully, because hidden behind it is a no. Say no to distraction, to impulse, to negativity, and you create the room to say yes to discipline, to vision, and to growth. And it's those yeses that lead you to wealth. One of the greatest shifts you can make in your journey toward wealth is to lengthen your perspective. Most people are in such a hurry. They want results today, profits tomorrow, and success without the waiting. But wealth doesn't bend to impatience. It bends to discipline, to time, and to consistency. If you want to become wealthy, you must stop thinking in days and start thinking in decades. Ask yourself often, what decision today will still be paying me 10 years from now? That single question can change the entire direction of your financial life. When you make decisions with a 10-year horizon, you avoid the traps that catch so many. A quick purchase that feels good today suddenly looks expensive when you realize that money could have doubled or tripled over time. An investment that seems small today becomes massive when allowed to compound. The wealthy are masters of patience. They don't sprint toward the finish line. They pace themselves for the marathon. They know the real reward isn't immediate. It's the fruit of planting seeds, nurturing them, and waiting for the harvest to arrive in its season. But long-term thinking isn't just about money, it's about legacy. Earning a high income for yourself is good, but planning for wealth that outlives you is better. Think about what you can pass on, not just dollars, but principles, wisdom, and habits. Write down your lessons. Teach your children the discipline of saving, the power of investing, and the value of service. Share the philosophy that guided your wealth building so it doesn't stop with you but multiplies in the lives of those who come after. When you think in terms of legacy, every action becomes larger than yourself. Wealth then becomes not just accumulation, but contribution. Now, along the way, you will be tempted by shortcuts. They come disguised as opportunities, but most are just traps. Get-rich-quick schemes promise speed but deliver disappointment. And even if they succeed in the short run, wealth gained quickly without discipline tends to vanish just as quickly. I've seen it happen countless times. People strike gold, but without the character and patience to manage it, they lose it all. True wealth, the kind that lasts, is built slowly and steadily. That's what gives it roots. So remind yourself, this is not about what you can earn this week. It's about what you can build over the next decade. It's not about quick wins. It's about lasting victories. If you're willing to slow down, think long, and focus on legacy instead of shortcuts, you'll discover that wealth built patiently is wealth that endures. One of the greatest dangers to wealth is not struggle, it's comfort. Struggle sharpens you, forces you to grow, and keeps you reaching. Comfort, on the other hand, can lull you into stagnation. The moment you feel you've made it, the decline begins. That's why staying hungry, even when life gets comfortable, is one of the most important disciplines you'll ever practice. Wealth is not just about arriving at a destination, it's about continually moving forward. The key is to always set new targets for yourself. Once you hit a goal, don't stop to live off the memory of yesterday's success. Create the next one. Set fresh goals quarterly. Something just beyond your current reach, so your spirit never gets too settled. You see, wealth is a living thing. If you stop feeding it with new vision, it starts to decay. And the best food for wealth is learning. No matter how much you've achieved, you must stay a student. The mind that stops learning starts declining, and soon, so does the wealth. Keep reading, keep attending seminars, keep listening to voices of wisdom. If I had stopped learning after my first taste of success, I would have soon been overtaken by those still growing. That's the way life works. Those who keep learning eventually surpass those who don't. But there's another secret to staying hungry, and it goes beyond money. Once your financial needs are met, money alone won't be enough to drive you. At that point, you must find a mission bigger than yourself. Shift your focus from accumulation to contribution. Help others rise. Mentor someone who's just beginning. Teach the principles that carried you forward. Serve in a way that makes your wealth meaningful beyond the numbers. That kind of purpose keeps you moving long after money no longer motivates you. I can tell you from personal experience, the most rewarding part of my journey wasn't the checks I cashed or the things I bought. It was the people who came to me years later and said, "Because of something you taught me, my life changed." That's what gives you energy when comfort tries to slow you down. That's what keeps you hungry when wealth alone no longer excites you. So don't let success make you soft. Keep setting new targets. Keep learning and keep serving. That's how you prevent decay and ensure that your wealth and your influence continue to grow long after you've reached comfort.